Welcome, everybody, to another episode of DNS Unfiltered. Today, I'm excited to have Kuba on the show with me. Now, Kuba, you are like an AI compliance kind of expert. And I don't know if you knew this. I don't think I told you this when we were preliminary talking, but I've just been tasked with heading up the AI department here at DNS Filter. So I am really excited about this because you're going to tell me how to do my job.
You can express opinions.
Hey,
I'm not in a position to give anybody advice how to do their job.
all opinions are welcome, but like, tell us about your position, like what is it that you do around the tech space?
So there are two main areas of my activity. One is an AI risk and compliance analyst, and my field is primarily to assess risk with associated with AI and try to inform organizations about risks and how to mitigate, how to manage them. And my secondary field is me being the curator of AI governance library. That's my side project, which is this repository of 250 and growing resources regarding AI governance, how to build those systems and how to govern AI.
So I need to go through and read all of that. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's like
Totally.
230 resources.
Yes, and some of them are entire books of 600 pages and more. So yeah, it's pretty extensive.
Very extensive. And we'll get to that. But first I want to talk about you're kind of at this intersection of law and, landed in AI risk and security. So how did that arc kind of take place? How did you end up where you're at?
I am a technology enthusiast first. Since I was the very little kid, I tinkered with all sorts of technology. Like if there was something that was new and was shiny, I was chasing it all the time. But I ended up being a lawyer. So I figured I'm going to be a technology lawyer. So I was doing this for quite a long time. But one day I realized that all the cool stuff happens before I enter the room or after I leave it. So I decided, yeah, I want to stay in the room. So I transitioned full time to work with technology. I entered through the venue of privacy and all the regulations related to GDPR. And as privacy is a huge portion of AI, that's why I settled on working with AI in this way. For the past 3 years, I've been working pretty much solely with AI projects, and I'm having the time of my life. Like, it's amazing.
That sounds like my job, actually. Awesome. I was just thinking, like when you saw the new shiny thing, I just it, flashed in my memory about a zip drive. Have you ever seen a zip disk? It's like back in the day, there used to be like those, hard floppy disks, and they were like
Yeah.
144 megabytes. Well, eventually they came out
Yeah.
with zip disks that were like 250 megabytes. And I just remember like going to Best Buy one day and spending like $400 on this stupid thing.
Were they not megabyte point 44? I think they were that small.
Yeah, the regular floppies were like
Yeah.
144 megs. It was like
Yeah.
ridiculous.
That
But
were the times.
let's talk about your governance library. So apparently I need to go
Yeah,
through and read it. It's going to
absolutely.
take me 6 months, but you have like 230 curated resources. There's no like sales fluff or funnels in there.
No, no.
You said you'd be happy if 20 people followed it, but you got almost 400 subscribers. So tell us a little bit about the AI governance library and how to get access to it.
Well, actually, I did. So it is available online under aigl.blog. So that's basically, I started this as a blog and it grew quite a lot. It actually started as me just collecting resources that I was gathering for myself. But as it grew, I realized, yeah, I'm going to share this with the world because why not? I have them anyway, so I can just as well share it. So it really attracted quite a lot of attention. And right now, I think I have like 2,000 subscribers, almost 2,000 subscribers to it. I periodically send the selection of the best resources, like from the past 2 weeks, as a newsletter. And that's really a side project that I'm working on. But what I'm really enjoying around that is the ability to share it and to hear the feedback from people to whom I deliver this knowledge. Because, well, one principle that I have is not have any sales funnels, anything that's marketing related. Although some of those resources have been produced by commercial entities, companies, and so on. But as long as they provide knowledge in it doesn't try to sell people stuff, that's fine by me. I do not come into any partnership with anybody in terms of commercial sponsorships or anything on those lines. Like, if I find something useful, I'm just going to put it. And it doesn't matter if it has 2 pages or 600. If it's useful, it's there.
So it's aigl.blog. So go check it out if you get the chance and subscribe, which I still need to do. I'm just
You're
gonna
not
have
subscribed yet.
I know. Like, I just
That's
see
a
the button
shame.
here, subscribe. Like, oh my gosh, missing out.
Yeah, but
But anyway,
yeah, but then again, you don't need to be subscribed to take a look at those
yeah, I have.
resources.
So actually, I found you because of this, and it was funny because I was doing some research with AI, as I do,
Hmm.
and your blog, one of these resources came up as like a DNS system to kind
Hmm.
of do governance around AI agents, and that's
Yeah.
how I click. You don't just take the gospel from
Hmm.
AI. You got to go check out the links it gives you, make sure it's um, accurate. And that's actually how I found Kuba here. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. I got to talk to this guy. But tell me
Thank you.
about the AI governance library. Like, so I think you said that no one was doing this, no one was curating a list of resources like this. But why do you think that is? Like, is it because AI is just too new or it's just so scattered? Like, what was the impetus to motivate you to actually do it?
Well, for me, that was just the joy of sharing those resources and having them built in an incremental way because, well, I was gathering them anyway, putting them anywhere that, for one, it's easy for me to look for those resources and remember anything that I have there. And two, I was able to share it with the world. And that was my motivation pretty much. Really, when I started, I don't think there was anybody doing this. I think one or two people reached out to me and said, yeah, I have this or that initiative that's aligns with it. I think there's one person in India doing a similar library, but it is a bit of a different focus in terms of specialization. And I think there's a lot of room and a lot of space to fill the demand for knowledge, really. Because what we are seeing in this field is that people do not know how to build AI governance, and that's partially because the field is so new. And secondly, I think that's because people come from very many angles to this field, and they come from privacy, legal, risk, cybersecurity, information technology, and so on and so forth. And there's so many angles we can tackle those problems that it's really tough to say where AI governance really starts and where it doesn't. And it's all complicated by the amount of marketing and just pure financial incentives to label anything that's AI. And there's a lot of need for quality knowledge how to tackle those problems. Because at the end of the day, it's all software and it's gonna be a part of software systems that we've built. And understanding how to implement those solutions around large language models for our purpose of building software is a tough thing to do.
So there's a lot of fluff and hype around AI,
Oh yeah,
and maybe I might be guilty of a little bit myself. Not gonna lie.
I
I
think
had
we all are a little bit. It's tough to be in this field and not be hyped a little bit. For me, that's a fundamental shift. I was always striving to be part of the technology revolution, to how it changes our life, how it transforms our lives. And at the same time, I'm not very good at coding. I tried to do it several times, and I showed it to my colleagues that are programmers, and well, they were very kind to me and called it a pseudocode. So yeah, I never had this knack for building software, but suddenly AI allows me and a number of people to interact with machines, interact with computers on a fundamentally different level. I'm not talking just about vibe coding and creating computer code using AI, but just the sheer access to practical knowledge and how we can learn anything and implement it at a rapid rate. That's something unparalleled. I always have the shivers when I think about this sometimes, when I just can't stop working with and building new stuff using it. Just with the AI governance library, when I have a problem, I don't know anything about coding. I just can't do it. But I can just paste a piece of code into an assistant that will produce it for me. So that's amazing. And this feeling is amazing. And I can't blame anybody for hyping this feeling. That's something that people I think have been chasing for a long time. And that's amazing that it's possible.
Yeah, so the hype is real, the fluff is real, and I'll
Mm.
give a little hype story. So, like I said, had just been tapped as someone to lead our AI initiatives here at DNS Filter. And so one of the first things I did, I was actually doing this yesterday. I was trying to gather the AI story at DNS Filter so that I could tell it to the company.
Hmm.
And turns out we've been doing AI for quite a while. I was the first one, which is why I'm in this role. I was like, oh my God, look at this. Look what you can do. But the funny thing is, I jammed all of this data in there. We've done some AI surveys and we have an AI committee that kind of guides everything. We started with governance, actually, you'll be happy to know.
Hmm.
So, like, after we were
Oh,
like, wow, this is crazy, they're like, wait a minute, we're like a cybersecurity company. Like, this stuff is also dangerous. So, we put some very stringent regulations around our usage first, which is good and bad. But the arc that the AI Claude in this case pulled out was a specific employee that we have. His name is Alex. Hey, Alex.
hey,
So
Alex.
he plucked him out and it was like the arc is told perfectly by Alex's story. So about 8 months ago, we had a survey. It was like, how are you using AI? And his comment was something around like, oh, I wish I could fill out my, weekly how I'm doing report, which is a thing we do here at DNS Filter. He's like, oh, I wish I could do that. And 2 days ago, I was in a meeting with him and he goes, I got Claude Code, spent the weekend, and I built a Go TUI to use the DNS Filter API through the terminal. I was like,
Wow.
oh my God, what are you doing? So like people are getting, I don't, there's a word for this, but I forget, but they're getting hyped. Like the hype is real and it's, you know, put some guardrails around yourself and, realize that hallucinations happen and all this stuff. But
Yeah.
hype is real. But on the other side of the coin, fluff is real. And there's a bunch of garbage on the internet.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
of it, most of it probably created by AI. But the
Yes.
AI governance library you've created is a curated list from you and experts. So
Yes.
go check it out, aigl.blog, if you haven't looked yet.
Yeah.
All right.
Everybody's welcome.
You're all welcome. So you talked about AI risk, not the big flashy Skynet
Hmm.
scenarios like Terminators are
Yeah.
coming. It's like subtle compounding, but people are quietly, they're losing access to loans, are getting filtered out of job applications by AI recruiters. Boards are making decisions. So talk to the
Mhm.
audience about why these slow burn, like so to speak, AI risks scare you more than the Terminators that are coming to kill us all.
Yeah, I that's an analogy that I like because when we think about AI in terms of loud hype around that, we usually picture AI risk about something catastrophic happening, like nukes shooting on their own or satellites falling from the sky or some big events. And this is a possible scenario, but I don't think it's very likely. But what I am really thinking in terms of impactful day-to-day risks that we all are encountering is those discrete processes that are happening around AI. Those situations where AI is slowly drifting towards more and more unacceptable outcomes. And I am really concerned that we as companies building those and individuals using AI, as a society, will not notice that this boiling of the frog, like how you boil a frog, like you just put it into a pan and just slowly turn the heat on, and that's something that I really am concerned about. There's the story, for example, from it comes from China, like because that used to be very unregulated space for AI. Those delivery drivers that were driving employed the companies that employed delivery drivers employed AI algorithms to optimize route, and it sounds amazing. It started finding better routes. It started optimizing time. So the delivery drivers were making more deliveries, earning more. People were getting their food or their groceries faster, and the company was making more money. But what it happens in time, AI started optimizing routes around those successful deliveries because it doesn't discriminate between like what's ethical or what's acceptable or not acceptable. And if successful drivers are taking certain routes, that it starts recommending those. So it started penalizing those drivers that didn't take those optimal routes. And it leads to enforcement of usage of routes that were just purely illegal or dangerous for those drivers. Because, well, you're using scooters, so you can cut some corners, you can traverse roads which are optimal in terms of time, but not optimal in terms of safety of the driver, for example. There are routes that are just unsafe. This is just an example to show what happens if we do not implement a dynamic of explainability and observability of those risks, if we do not test our models on the flight, if we do not govern them continuously, if we do not benchmark them against the results which we want them to achieve. And that's very important, because at the end of the day, it's just a computer program. It has certain variables, but it's not deterministic, it's probabilistic. So it will produce very unexpected outcomes. And we need to be able to spot those that we do not want it to happen. And that's a challenge in itself.
Do you think that's like a context problem? So like if you think of a human taking a route, and I have this problem, like when Google Maps or Apple Maps tells me to go a certain way, I'm like, that's why would I go that way? And then I go the
Mm,
way that I go, like I disagree, and
mhm,
then I run into like a three
yeah.
car pileup or something, and it was
Mhm,
right the whole time. But is there like context that wasn't given to the AI? Like this is a one way street, you cannot go that way, and
mhm.
this is a bad part of town, or this is a clustery part of town where a lot of traffic is, and like is it a context problem because we didn't give AI all the information, or is it just a natural thing that happens with AI that it can't digest everything at once?
I believe that AI is just a reflection of us. Any parameters that we assign, any weights that we assign, are a reflection of what we believe in and what we believe is valuable, and what foundation do we build those systems. And if we optimize everything around optimal gains, optimal time, optimal capital usage, and we factor only the financials and just the efficiency of systems, then we start losing those human values, and we start losing the human from our perspective. And it does sound, I realize that it does sound very high level, and it sounds almost
Like
detached from,
nebulous.
yeah, nebulous. And it sounds very, like, it doesn't sound actionable, because, well, we're talking about human rights or safety or the right to explainability. And those are big words and those are big values, but they need to be implemented on very actionable steps, because they translate into how we're going to design those systems. Because it's only up to us. Like, everything that we do is by humans for humans. If we lose that from our view, that then when the problem starts, because we stop asking those questions, and we inevitably run into somebody suffering. And it will not be a huge suffering like a Terminator shooting somebody in the street, but it's some driver getting bumped by cars more often, or it is somebody not getting a loan that should get this loan first in the first place, or it's somebody not getting their social security, social benefits, even though they should be able to do it. It just makes life tougher and harder for those discrete cases. And the further we go and the less human we build those systems, the worse it gets for everybody.
So, go ahead. The worse it get. Well, first of all, I think you titled the episode with "AI is a reflection of us." So true. But since you mentioned Terminators again, when we were having our preliminary conversation, you mentioned the meme Torment
Mm,
Nexus, which I had never
yeah.
heard before. So I had to go look it up. You explained it to me, and I was like, I got to go research this. This is awesome. So Wikipedia says the Torment Nexus is a term used in critical commentary of the influence of science fiction, like books and movies, on technological development. So this is something it sounds like you've seen. So what are some moments where you're seeing people using the Torment Nexus in real life? And what are the builders like not asking? Like how are they not asking the right questions before just shipping software?
Yeah, yeah, I think we do have those, because I had sometimes I have those moments. One of the first moments that I had was when I was reading certain military reporting around human oversight of AI decision-making tools. There was an extensive description of how those processes are being made, and how AI is being implemented, how many safeguards there are, and it sounds great. And it's like, that sounds very reasonable. Like that's an actually responsible approach. And then in the end, I found a statistic where it was like how many cases were really challenged by human operators. And it turned out it was 0 out of thousands that were happening. And I had this feeling, no, that's not how it's supposed to work. It's just, even if it's just training, like those systems are not designed for it. And those are grim moments, really. I think my other moment, Torment Nexus moment, was where you're reading again the story from China, but which is not unregulated space, but at the time when it was happening, it was quite unregulated, and in this environment, many edge cases happened. The situation was when I was reading one of the reports from China's Chinese market, and there was story relayed by Chinese taxi drivers. Actually were using taxi companies were using analogous to Uber or Lyft. They were using AI empowered systems to calculate optimal routes, help drivers to choose better experience for the clients. It turned out those drivers stopped talking to their passengers, and the reason for that was that those apps were listening to the environment inside the car for very good reason, like to make the travel more pleasant for the customer. And that's a good goal. Like we can relate to that. Once you have a taxi with a driver who is polite, who is helpful, we feel good about it. And that was the goal. But it turned out that the AI cannot distinguish between what the passenger is saying and what the driver is saying, which is tough. Those drivers realize that they're being rated on to benefit or to deterrence of their driving. And it turned out that if such person even if the client was saying something that was rude, inappropriate, it was instantly being recorded as, so your rating is going to be lower, which turned this whole culture of driving taxis into silent driving in a car, like you are just an automaton. And it doesn't show on any chart. It doesn't show on performance metric. It doesn't show on bias. It even looks great, because on observability metrics, this means that, the percentage of negative interactions probably going down. And so, hooray, objective achieved. And we eliminated those interactions. But we also removed something very human from the environment. And that's something that chills me about AI, that there's not enough human in this technology from time to time. And that's something that's really challenging.
That is a very profound story. It makes me think of like several movies that I've seen, like sci-fi movies, like Total
Yeah.
Recall. I don't know if you've ever seen Total Recall. They have that in Poland, but there's like the Johnny Cab, and it's like the little robot, a robot kind of humanoid shaped robot driving the taxi, and the person in the back, and the robot is like, "How was your day going?" Like it's super weird. But like I mean, you're exactly right. Like if there's going to be a human in the car driving you, when I'm in a taxi, and especially if I'm in a strange place, I'm like, what should I see? What's a good restaurant? Like where, tell me about whatever town I'm in. And they're
Yeah.
almost like a concierge or like a tour guide. And if their incentives are aligned to not speak, like that's
Yeah.
what they're gonna do. Like
Yeah.
they're gonna adapt to win the game, which is more money, because they're
Yes.
getting good scores. And
Mm-hmm.
if we don't
Exactly.
tailor the metrics to say like, okay, let the AI do the AI stuff, but let
Mm-hmm.
the human do the human stuff and score the human on the human stuff.
Yeah.
That's a
And
scary.
I think there's fundamental problem about that, because we are designing those take into account a huge number of parameters and weights, and some of those parameters, like most of them, we are not aware of. We are not aware of how those systems make those decisions, and that's fine. That's okay. That we want that to happen, because this allows them to be so amazing in performing tasks that we want them to perform. But at the same time, we cannot foresee what will the systems do in X amount of time. How will it learn based on its previous outcomes? Where it will take those interactions, and this is where when humans come into action, something that AI systems just cannot do. They are not self-aware. It's just the machine predicting the next token. So it is not able to go outside of the system and say, yeah, there's something fundamentally inhuman happening here. It's not something that's going to happen. And we need motivated human to come to those situations and to be able to, one, spot them, and two, signal that, well, that there's something happening and there needs to be a correction or just needs to be action around that. And on paper, it does what I think one of the major risks is it isn't necessarily beneficial to many organizations, or the benefits are hard to spot in terms of what the benefit is, because it doesn't translate directly into dollars. It doesn't translate into financial incentives. And in a system that's capitalistic, which we all already live in, it isn't necessarily easy to translate those values into tangible, actionable results. And that's a big challenge of AI governance, to show the value of ethical approach, to show the value of controls, to show the value of dynamic oversight. And that's what's one of the biggest challenges that is ahead of this field. Be able to convince the business side that, yeah, we do need those in place. Not, well, yeah, to convince the
So,
business
yeah, I
side.
mean, you're describing like if you're building tools with AI, you need to ask yourself, how is the human metric measured in this particular system? Like, how are we scoring it? Because, like you said, it's all financial and capitalistic. So, if you can try to quantify the experience, the human experience of the customers, make sure that is part of the calculus in these AI
Mhm.
systems.
I think
Accurate.
there's value in the humanity side of it. It's not everything about metric, or it's not always about math behind what's happening. Sometimes it's just a subjective, the subjective decision of somebody in this on those loops and on those systems doesn't necessarily need to be quantified, and it probably will not be quantified, because when we build those AI systems and software that integrates LLMs, we anticipate certain risks, biases, and we will not be able to spot them based on the previous assumptions. We will need somebody to be on those systems as they mature, as they grow, as they learn on themselves. And yeah, that's really challenging.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to measure, really. Like, what do they have? Like a CSAT, customer
Yeah,
satisfaction
yeah.
scores, like 1 through 5. Like, when I get one of those pop-ups in my browser or from, like, a hotel I stayed at, like, I'm always like, 5 stars, "Kuba was great. Thank you so much," because I know that that is someone's gonna read that, or AI might
Mhm.
read that.
Yeah.
But it might call that person out in their AI report, be like, "Oh, Kuba did a great job on this thing, according to Mikey Pruitt, guest on 513," like whatever. So I
Mhm.
always make a point to say, like, I had a great experience, because that is the only way you can measure it that I know of.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, you try to transfer something that's very subjective and very human, like human interaction, into cold numbers. And that's never the whole story and never the whole picture. And previously, before LLMs were a big part of our software, that was not the big problem, because we had those systems built based on the mathematical foundations. And anytime we scored something, we knew how it will impact those measurements. We knew, because we designed it from start to end. Even if the design was faulty, it was still a design. But right now, we are putting information and not real putting data and not really knowing what is going to happen on all fronts. We just cannot. The volume data is just too much. We uploaded all of the internet into LLMs, like, and that's it. Like, there's nothing more to upload, really. Like, probably there are some digitized soul documents, but I'm pretty sure that
Well,
like
the
99% of it
Anthropic
is.
has one. It's pretty funny.
Oh yeah,
The soul dot markdown. That's
yeah.
correct. It's anyway, we'll skip that one. That's like we could be here for another 3 hours talking about soul dot markdown. But so we've been, we even used the word nebulous. Like, we were talking about some high level concepts. So let's get a little bit more technical and some like practical information. So you've curated a top 10 list of LLM applications, prompt injection research, data exfiltration risks. Now you've got a
Hmm.
lot of stuff, and this is all in the aigl.blog
Hmm. Yeah.
library. So go check it out. So, what are, for the people watching this, which is typically security practitioners and MSP technicians, what are some of those top LLM vulnerabilities that organizations are probably ignoring?
But it's tough to answer. I think what I think is challenging is to understanding the threat landscape and understanding the context of LLMs and trying to and really applying those very tailored threat landscapes to the context of the environment of the organization at hand. Because, well, in different situations, those risks will vary and they will be different. And what happens in many organizations is that those threat exercises that are done are not done periodically and not done on a very often, they're not very often performed. And to implement those into day-to-day operations is I think it's very important to do it in the changing landscape of AI, because those threats really arise really quickly, and then they really change very rapidly. There are things happening, and we all know that they are not in months, not in years, but in weeks. There are happening, and that's something that we really need to pay attention to, really accelerate our adaptability to the landscape. And I don't want to call out specific risks, specific threats, because I don't think there's any universal answer. Every organization does have its context, how it will treat this landscape, how it will respond to them. But one thing that is really common to all of it is adaptability, is flexibility, and its dynamic approach to it.
Yeah, that's good way to put it. You got to be nimble because
Yes. Yes.
these things are changing rapidly. Another thing, so like the way that I found you was talking about one of your documents was talking about autonomous AI agents.
Mm,
So we're almost giving personhood to these AI systems that can go do stuff for us.
mm,
So like right now at DNS Filter, we have a few solely autonomous agents with some stringent guidelines and human intervention at various points. But how do we govern these AI agents that get more and more autonomous as time goes on?
I think the first challenge is identification of all of those agents and building systems that, for one, track them and track the outcomes of all those systems. So integration between inherent and built tooling, for example, if we have something off the shelf, absolutely using those tools and be able to connect the dots, and that's the first step. And secondly, building systemic approach to those agents. So being able to determine what are the purpose of the agent, what are the designed outcomes, and really implementing those principles to people actually building this software and tying all of that into a systemic oversight of those agents. So for one, being knowing that they are autonomous agents working in the system and strictly restricting in which point of the system they are operating, and at the same time being able to map them to one coherent framework, because that's one of the challenges that I think that's one of the major challenges around agents, that they are very easy to set up and they are sometimes hard to spot. And I think that's a big challenge in governing agents, that we need to be aware where they interact, how they interact, to be able to weave this oversight into existing security frameworks.
You said they were hard to spot. Do you mean that it's hard to spot the vulnerabilities until it's like out in the wild? Or do you mean it's hard to spot when it's AI and not human?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to spot when this is AI and not human, and it's getting tougher and tougher. For one, if they are part of existing software system, it's obviously like it's very, very easy to spot, because, well, we have the architecture and we know where they operate. But more and more code and more solutions are being built by AI agents that are not part of the system themselves, but they're supporting humans making the decisions. Work is being produced by agents working and supporting humans. The tougher it is to spot which parts of the solutions were devised by humans. There's a number of very very famous cases that certain consulting companies are using agents, and they're using generative AI to deliver a solution. And it's very widely known and all over the news. But at the same time, this is happening on a much more discrete scale in the organization. So if in the organization where individual contributors are using their own AS agents to develop and to produce work that's being incorporated into bigger systems. And the more of this work is being produced by agents, the tougher it is to spot where the line between human input and machine input stops. And that's a big challenge, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. I ran a little experiment about a week ago. I've spent a lot of time on social media, too much, like for work stuff, And the new Open Claw Claude bot thing is out, and I was like, I'm gonna see what this thing does. So I put it on a VM and on my server here at my house,
Hmm.
just to see what it do. I also have DNS filter protecting the DNS queries of Open Claude right now,
Okay.
which is pretty cool to see what it's doing via DNS queries. So I'm like, that's weird. Why did you do that? And anyway, so I set up connections to my social media accounts for about a week and did like a reply guy strategy, just like reply on comments and let's see what happens. So I had a bet essentially with my open claw that Reddit would figure out that we're AI first, and it thought that Twitter would figure it out. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see. So it was Reddit. I was correct. OpenClaw, you were wrong. So, but on Reddit, so I was commenting on things like twice a day across all social platforms that I have. And most of the comments were getting like 50 to 200 like upvotes on Reddit. Let's just take Reddit for the example, except for one. And this one has like negative 30 downvotes. And the first comment from DC 536, you figured it out. It said, please thank your LLM for these insights. And I just wrote back, like as a human, I just wrote back, LOL, lol, like busted. Yeah. But it is hard to spot. So like some of those comments were getting interaction, and I'm not going to keep doing it. I was just doing it as an experiment. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's very hard to distinguish text for sure. And then images are pretty human now. Videos are coming
Mhm.
next. Like it's going to be impossible to spot what's AI and what's human in the near
We're
future.
very, very early in this process. Generative AI has been in public consciousness for years now, something like that. So since the ChatGPT 3 came out, so it's not that long in years rudimentary with application of those in this technology. So it's pretty easy to spot usually. But the better we are at developing it, in using it, and the better we are at prompting and building systems that look more human and more human, the further we strive from just human outputs. And it's going to be tougher and tougher to spot it, which is not necessarily bad because and at the end of the day, we are using this technology to enhance our productivity, to enhance our communication, enhance our access to knowledge, and so on. And that's great. But are we really accountable for how you're using this? For example, you're running a bet, you're running a thought experiment, an experiment really, like you're having fun with AI. But we can very easily see this as very malicious activity also.
Yeah,
And
the leap to malicious is very easy to spot. Like this is
yeah.
how like governments are toppled and things, it could get very bad just using AI to comment on social media, like turning the tides of public sentiment around some
Hmm.
topic.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think I go back mentally to one of my favorite quotes from Benedict Evans, one of my favorite people in technology, who said like the internet is the short story of the internet is that we connect everybody to everybody, and we found out that people are jerks. And yeah, that's true. Like, we are using technology, and suddenly we found out that yeah, people can be jerks. People can really be not pleasant to each other. It's just being human, and that's just being human. Let's just keep in mind to have it at least governed,
yeah.
not
Be human. Be
derailed.
human.
Yes.
So Cuba has a heart out in about 5 minutes. So we're going to hit the rapid fire questions. You ready? All right. AI
Yes.
governance. Is it scaling fast enough? Yes or no?
No, it is not.
Just straight answer no. All
Yeah,
right. Next.
you said
Next.
rapid questions, so I give
You're right.
rapid
I did.
answers.
I did. I did set the stage. All right. Most overhyped AI risk that people worry too much.
That's a tough one. There's so many. I want to say prompt injection, but yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, prompt injection. I'd say prompt
Prompting
injection.
people worry too much about prompt injection. Okay. Good.
Yeah,
So the
yeah, because
next question.
it is
Go ahead.
number one and it's overshadowing all the others. That's yeah, because it has been like, okay, I'll elaborate a little bit. Prompt injection has been number one risk that has been discussed last year. It has been number one, I think, on OS top 10 LLM list, even I think last year. So it is very, very important one. However, it's being discussed so much that it kind of pushes everything from yeah, it's natural and it's human to focus on the most flashy things, and it's good to know that it is there, but at the same time, we need to remember about the whole threat landscape, and that's risk landscape, and that's something that I have in mind here.
So the next question is, what are people not talking about enough? So if prompt injection looks like number one on paper, what it should
Mhm.
be number one in your opinion?
Biases and bias observability and explainability of systems.
Wow, that's a good one. That's a whole nother topic, but
Oh
we'll
yeah.
keep going. All right. One resource from the AI governance library that everyone should read first. This is basically a question for me. What should I read first?
There's I don't remember the whole title, but there's a report about ROI of AI ethics. And this is a very good resource. It shows what's the real value about AI ethics. What's the dollar value of AI ethics? And I don't think it is the end value. Value of ethics is just values, and that's it. But
So
it lets us translate those values into business context, and that's something that is important in transforming how we develop things in capitalistic systems.
perfect. So that's the article is titled "The ROI of AI Ethics: Profiting with Principles for the Future." I've got it pulled up. I'm going
Thank
to read
you.
it right after this. Last rapid fire question. AI makes the world better or worse in 10 years. What does your gut say?
It's making world better, period. Yeah, I think it's just making world better. I don't think it's all good. There are huge portions of AI that are problematic, to say the least, but I have high hopes in humanity. We will solve it and we'll benefit from it.
Perfect. Well, Kuba Szarmach, thank you for being here with me. Thank you for
Thank
staying
you.
up late
Thank you for
ish in Poland and working with me. We had some conflicts, some scheduling conflicts, but we did it. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
we
being here.
did. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to have here.
Where should people look for you? Where should people look for you online besides aigl.blog?
I'm quite active on LinkedIn and I post pretty often. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, just ping me on LinkedIn and we'll start from there.